And boom, we're live. Welcome, this is Tokyo Tonight, with you once again for another week. How's it going for you guys? It's going good for me. A lot of stuff going on with work and so on at the moment, so I've had a lot of thinking time lately, although this is a long weekend in Japan, which is a good thing. I think tomorrow we've got beach day, or umi no hi, which you can see as ocean day or beach day or whatever. And it also marks today. It was the day apparently that the Met Office announced that the rainy season is officially over, at least in the greater Tokyo region, which means that we now have 2.5 months of basically unrelenting, miserable heat. That is the summer in Japan, in Tokyo. It's been low temperature 25 Celsius at night and high of 34, some places 36 or more during the day, and high humidity. And that is how it is going to be from now on, which sucks, but that is what it is. Let me just check. I am indeed playing live there. Just going to go and pause that video to save myself some bandwidth. And wow, I've got a good crowd in here. Rikana the Ferry, Sinaju full. Third Sunday that you've made it live on time. Well, welcome. It's good that you made it on time. I'm glad you did. Who else we got here? Elvast, Verstan, Diju. I am live and there is an image, but you can check that. BW Productions channel. Good to see you. Sa Simang 28172. Shaka laka laka boom shaka laka laka laka. Good to see you, Lucas Massa, Phoenix 787. They're at the beach today. Well, that's a day early, but of course tomorrow's going to be crazy because tomorrow being beach day, everyone's going to go to the beach. And Posey May, yes, shake, shake, shake the room. Boom, yes, the fresh princess of who I am. I like that one. Say hello if you're in the comments right now. Hey Stardust, like you. Hey guys, hey, good to see you. Mr. Cordy Chip, good to see you, of course. It must be old to know that song. I am an old person. Benjamin Harris is there, 1 out of 2 fairies. Well, we've got Rikana the Fairy, so that's always pretty good. Hey, Nonbiristo, awesome to see you. Nonbiristo is a good Twitter account to follow everyone, by the way. I've mentioned that before. And makes good music on SoundCloud, a good SoundCloud account to follow. Hey El Comedo, good to see you, good to see everyone. Amble, in Yorkshire, the sun is out and you've got sunburn cream, yes. I guess in Japan the heat is so intense that you don't really get to stay out long enough to actually suffer too bad sunburn lately. But that is how it is. Nicholas Rapp, it's a cold summer in Sweden. Well, enjoy the cold summer there because yes, believe me, it's I know you'd like it warm, but it is crazy hot in Tokyo, and we are now officially in the 2-month period that I'd say to people, come for the September 5 YouTube party at Tokyo Sports Cafe in Roppongi, but otherwise don't come. Because pretty much through the rest of July and August it's just going to be miserable here in Japan. Hey Michael Essex, good to see you. Hope Tokyo, man, we've got a really good turnout today, so great to see all of you guys. There's been a bit of news. I haven't picked out too many topics. I've had a lot going on lately. I'm going to be in China actually next week, which actually makes me realize if I'm flying out on Sunday, I might not be able to do the show next week. Again, I've got to go to Dalian next week, which will be pretty awesome actually. More work stuff, but yeah, it's an interesting city actually, Dalian. If you look at the history, it is to Japan a bit as Hong Kong is to UK. It was the main port city of Manchuria during that time period when Manchuria was a country, but it wasn't part of Manchuria itself. It was actually part of Japan, and much of the city and the architecture there is still based on, it was designed based on things like Ueno Station and so on. Hey Phoenix 787, thank you for the like there. It's actually a city built very much by Japan and built to be very much like Japan, so it's but at the same time, of course, now it's very Chinese and it's gone back and it's completely Chinese. I know some people from there who I'll be going back to work with. It's actually, they've got 6 million people there. The number 2 city in Japan is 4 million, I think, which is 3.5 million, which is Yokohama, and 3 million, which is Osaka. Those are the number 2 and 3 cities in Japan. This is the number 20 city in China, and it's got twice as many people. It's got 6 million, so it's kind of crazy. But yeah, hey, great to see everybody. You went on a first date to dinner last night. Oh, now that's interesting. Rikana the Fair, you had your first date last night? Well, congratulations on that. That's awesome. 17. Benjamin Harris, you're in Australia, right? I think that is. Oh, wait a minute. You might be one of the Swedish people, but frostbite at 17. That sounds Australian. So anyway, lots of awesome stories as usual. I know I've got 1,261 articles there in my Flipboard overall, but of course these are the ones that I have picked away. Why is England colder than Norway? That's a good question. Hey, Ricky the Fairy, thank you for favoriting the video. Always appreciate that. I'm going to go through in the order that I added them. So going from the start of the week. So let me just skip through all this stuff. Yes, the racist kimonos and the Superman thing, which I totally didn't get. And look, let's get into the stories this week. I've got one track. It's actually one of the tracks left over from last week. I actually put a bunch of the tracks on SoundCloud this week. And I say in all humility, by the way, I've got to get another light here. This room is not as easy to light up as it was before. The way I've got this set up, I've got to have a light there. So sorry it's a bit darker than usual. Yeah, the last few tracks that I've been putting up on SoundCloud lately, they're all good. They're all really good. In fact, that's what's been motivating me to go and try to organize my SoundCloud a bit more. I think I'm making the best tracks I've made so far now. Both chill type music. I made a track for Man in Japan today. He wanted a track for an upcoming video, which I guess I shouldn't. Well, he's already put it on Twitter that it will be about fireworks. So he said, give me a chill video track about fireworks, which I made today, and that came out really nice. So I'm learning how to use the Hikosaemon app a little bit more subtly, which is cool, and the sounds are coming out well from that. But yeah. Hey Cat Plays, sup, indeed. So anyway, let's get into the stories that we've got. The first one, you get a lot of these BuzzFeed-ish type of, top 10 wacky things about Japan, or top 8 things never to do on a date, or whatever. Oh, okay, Sassy Man, go and enjoy being outside. But yeah, anyway, you get a lot of these kind of lists and a lot of these things, and as soon as you see these kind of clickbaity things, I've started to react kind of against them. As soon as I see them, I don't want to click on them anymore. So I saw this one from Kotaku, which people were forwarding around, frequently asked questions about visiting Japan, and I just thought, yeah, it's just another one of those crap lists. However, I looked at it and I thought it was pretty good. That said, I can't remember exactly what it was at the time. So I've got to look it up. So let's go and see. I thought this was a pretty good list of advice actually for going to Japan. This is a person who visited in Japan first time in 2001. But yeah, I thought these were pretty common sense. Hey, maybe I'm part Swedish, I don't know. So first question, for coming to Japan, if you want to know about Japan, frequently asked questions about visiting Japan, do you need to speak Japanese? And the answer is correct, absolutely not. Speaking Japanese enhances your ability to BW Productions channel. No, I cannot help you get a girlfriend. Well, I don't know, you can act like me and maybe become more popular with the ladies. No, don't do that, it doesn't work. So hey, Pickles Digajin, good to see Pickles Digajin there. So anyway, first question, do you need to speak Japanese? No, you don't. Well, you don't need to speak Japanese. In fact, in some ways, Japan is more fun not speaking Japanese. But of course, if you want to deeply be able to experience Japan, it becomes more accessible with the language. But that said, not speaking the language becomes its own type of adventure. And yeah. So I don't know. I would say I'd agree with the assessment here that you don't need to speak it. It becomes a very different experience when you speak Japanese. Of course, I'm very glad that I speak Japanese, but I'm just trying to stretch this out, make the screen look a little bit bigger. But yeah, hey Jonas B, good to see you. Sorry, I was in and out during the comments before, but you make music with Fruity Loops. I'd love to figure out. There's a few people who make music with Fruity Loops actually, so I would like to do that. Oh, you know what? I just realized I haven't updated. Oh, this is going to be dangerous, but you know what? I think I can do it. I'm gonna switch and cut over the little thumbnail down the bottom there. You can still hear me, right? Yeah, you can still hear me. Okay, that's awesome. That is now fixed. Boom. And that is now big. Okay. Oh man, I got to shout out Fox Morris. You've done it again. Awesome thumbnail for today. And I really appreciate Fox Morris every week making one more of these. I see that you've updated the font. I really like the Travis Moore font which he created for the logo. But there again, I mean, this is your thing, Fox Morris, and these are awesome. So thank you for this. Anyway, coming back to the topics, do you need to speak Japanese? No. You know, and like it says here, most people have a basic level. Most people are very friendly and they want to speak Japanese, or they want to speak English. But that said, you know, obviously it becomes a different experience when you speak Japanese. But definitely you don't need it. So everyone speaks English? No, that's right as well. You know, it's going to be a struggle again. I think that's part of the fun of the trip. But yeah, and yeah, everyone seems to be encouraging me to make music with Fruity Loops. I don't know if it's expensive or not, but I'll look into it. The only thing with Fruity Loops and most of this music making stuff is that it takes a lot of time and focus to really get a grip with. And you know, I don't have a lot of time. What I love about the iPad app and K-Oscillator is that I can do it on the train. I can learn it while I'm doing that. So, James O'Hara, do you need to speak English? Pointing and shouting. Yes, that's the old English tourism in France kind of strategy. Michael Atlas, great to see you. And Reagan Burns favorited a totally unrelated tweet, which actually I don't think I've included in the magazine for today, but if I've got time at the end I might come to it. There's actually, or I could even talk about this first, although I'm in the middle of one at the moment, so actually I'll come back to that. But there is an estimate that you remember that the immolation, the self-immolation suicide of the 71-year-old man with too many debts who got onto the bullet train and set himself on fire. The debts that his family could be up to $5 million based on standard payouts for economic damage and loss caused. Well, one to victims, of course, but also for the damage to the train company for all the issuing new tickets and delays and so on. Farrah Thief, Ableton Live represent. Yeah, I love, from what I've seen of Ableton Kit and Ableton videos, Ableton looks awesome. Michael Atlas, I did say hello to you before, but I'm going to say hello to you again. Michael Atlas, awesome to see you. Ableton looks like that's the one that I would love to, because it looks like a very performance-oriented piece of software as well, like for live playing. I've seen some awesome Ableton videos, so I would love to do that. But anyway, come back to the list. So everyone speaks English? No, everyone does not. In fact, everyone speaks kind of crap, but they speak enough that you can get around. That's the point of that. What's the next one? Worried about sticking out as a tourist? Do people really stare at foreigners? Yes, they do, but you know, like this person says, it's actually, you know, sticking out is generally a good thing. Of course, if you're of Asian extraction, you won't stand out so much. But yeah, people stand out, and if you don't want to stand out, I don't know. Well, standing out is part of the experience of being in Japan. If you don't want to stand out, you can stay in Tokyo. People won't pay any attention to you there. But pretty much everywhere else, even in Osaka or Nagoya to some extent, but certainly any city smaller than that, yeah, you're going to stand out. But you know, people are very nice. They treat foreigners as guests, and when they see someone who they think is a guest, you know, they're super nice. It can be frustrating if you're actually a resident and people are trying to treat you as a guest, and this is something that, you know, a lot of people get frustrated with when they live outside of Tokyo. But yeah, it's not a bad thing sticking out, but if you don't want to stick out, then, you know, it's kind of tough. If you're an Asian, you can blend if you want to blend, but there again, even Asian people tend to stand out just by talking or by fashion or by the way that they behave. So yeah. But you know, the stares are all it's all part of the fun anyway. Can I recommend some places to go that aren't for tourists? So again, this person themselves, what do they recommend here? We've got yeah, well, Japanese themselves tend to go to touristy places. In fact, tourism in Japan, when I got here, wasn't even really directed at foreigners. It was directed at Japanese people. So yeah, like this person says, this is the other nice thing about Japan actually, is that you can get on a bus or get on a train and walk around in random places. There's always plenty of stuff to find, and it's totally safe. You're never really going to end up in the wrong neighborhood. I would take people to Kabukicho just to show people what, you know, oh, Moonchild, good to see Moonchild. People, you know, just to show people the most dangerous neighborhood in Japan, Kabukicho, and it's totally safe. I mean, provided you don't do anything you're not supposed to do there anyway. So yeah, it's a very safe environment. You know, the worst thing is that it can be a little bit boring. And in fact, I did that in Fukuoka, and on my early trips, I'd just go wandering around randomly. Sometimes there's nothing to find, but people are still nice, and it's a totally safe environment to do that, which it isn't in some other places. So yeah, is it better to stay in a hotel or a hostel? From this perspective, they've given some options here, including Love Hotel. I've stayed in a hostel. There aren't many of them. I think hostels are a great way of traveling just because they're very social. They let you hook up with other people, sometimes who have experience traveling in the place, and you can get some inside information and some people to go around with. So hostels are good for that. Hotels are still, I think, overpriced. They've gotten a lot better. It used to be a flat, $100 or more for an absolute, crap room. Now, for less than $100, you can get a really nice room. So in Tokyo, anyway, the hotel thing has come up a lot. Hostels are pretty rare, though, maybe only in cities. So, I think you got to stay in hotels most of the time. And love hotel diversion, but yes, if you can't stay in a love hotel by yourself. That's the thing, though. So, don't think that it's a clever way of traveling alone. You've got to get someone to go with you. But if you can get someone to go with you, it's not a bad option. There's a thing on ryokan. What are they? What about a capsule hotel? I've never stayed in a capsule hotel. It's one of those things I really wanted to do when I got to Japan, and people told me that I got warned off by Japanese people who'd stayed in them and just said that they can be real hellholes. They can be full of extremely drunk and sick and homeless people and smelly people and people doing all sorts of stupid stuff. So I don't know. I know people have tried them, but I've never heard anyone who came back and said that they had an awesome experience in a capsule hotel. I know it's something you see in movies and it's something that's cool. No, nothing wrong with trying it, but I haven't heard a single good story about staying in a capsule hotel, and that's one reason I guess I never ended up trying it. Sinaju Full asked, did I feel safe in Shanghai? That's a good question. Yes, I did. I did feel safe, but it's a different vibe over there. I don't know. You hear stories about things happening to people in Shanghai that mean that I'm a little bit more aware of the need to be on my guard there. But that said, yeah. I was in a hotel and I was working most of the time. When I went sightseeing, I felt perfectly safe. The subways felt totally safe. I went to some places that were kind of dodgy areas, but everything was closed. I was going for the electronics plazas and so on. I found a particular place. So yeah, you do get the massage girls who are also Chinese in Japan, and they come up to you and stuff like that. I don't know that that's a good idea to go to that stuff. I've heard stories of people getting held up in places like that, so you want to be careful of that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, Shanghai felt pretty safe actually. For that question, it felt safe, but there again, I wouldn't try it on in a place that I'm not totally familiar with, and especially, at least I can speak the language here. I wouldn't try anything stupid in Shanghai. Just the fact that, with everything, there's these tourists, 16 tourists who have gotten arrested by the government because they had videos on their cell phones recently. I wouldn't try anything on in China. I'd be more careful there than in Japan. You should be careful everywhere, of course, even in Japan, and the stuff that happens in China happens here too. But, I think... I know Japan anyway. Do the trains? Why don't the trains don't run 24 hours a day? That's right. They stop running at midnight, which actually is a huge boon to the nightlife here. I think the fact that everything stops at midnight. But yeah. Hey, Bacterial. Sorry that you missed the start, but you are here now, and this is still the first story, so you're just getting into it anyway. Sleeping on the Shinkansen might be an option. Hey, that's what I did, although, like that point just said, they don't run 24 hours, but I would do that. I'd go out all night and I'd sleep on the train during the day, and that was a pretty good thing. The express trains as well were pretty good. Hey, Wildfire, good to see you. Capsule hotel first built in Osaka. I didn't know that. Is that a fact? I'm not sure. And yes, Posey made dodgy areas, but not dodgy areas like that. I was dodgy areas like just kind of, unbranded OEM stuff and that kind of stuff. When I was there, it was closed, so I was a bit let down anyway. Is it hard to get around, like on trains and subways? This person says not anymore. It definitely is getting better. I remember first arriving in Tokyo Station in 1995 and just seeing the full Tokyo subway map with nothing but kanji on it and not knowing where I was or how to get to where I needed to get to and being completely overwhelmed. So, hey, kia ora, Wildfire777, you are up late. Thank you for joining. I would say trains are super easy to get around, and you got to figure it out a little bit. And what is probably a little bit confusing is that unlike Korea and some other countries, the trains that are on different train companies use different train gates. So even inside one station, you don't just change platform to platform. You actually have to go and find the other platforms, which can be a bit of a pain, but yeah, they recommend the Japan Rail Pass, which I do recommend if you're coming as a tourist. And it is a lot better now, especially now you can use Wi-Fi in most train stations in Tokyo anyway and stuff like that. That stuff is all improving. Sounds like you'll need a phone. Yes, you will. And there are places that you can rent SIM cards, so that is getting better. I actually just got a Chinese phone. Where is it? Yeah, I got a Xiaomi, which is I got this fella. Boom, boom, boom. It's on a Chinese operating system that blocks all Google apps, so that kind of sucks. But it works very well, and it's got dual SIM and a memory card slot, so I'm happy with it. But I will use this as my travel phone going forward, because most Japanese phones are locked, and because most Japanese phones are locked, most Japanese people don't know about SIM cards or traveling with that sort of stuff. Hey Anthony, good to see you, and glad that you caught it live for the first time. Welcome. That is the benefit of watching this live. You get to actually say hello. So yeah, I got that because so now I can use SIM cards when I go overseas in Japan. I wouldn't know where to tell you to get a SIM card, because like I said, the phones here are locked and people don't even know about the SIM cards in most of their phones. That's going to change though. The law changed at the end of June, that between June and the end of the year, most phone companies will have to unlock all their phones, all their new phones. So all the new phones, they're all going to delay it till the end of December. But from the start of next year, Japan is going to be more like other countries where phones will be unlocked. But for now, everything is still locked, and SIMs are a pain to get. Hey, bye McNeil, awesome to see you. I was just reading, just before the show started, I was reading the story about why don't many black women marry Japanese men, which I thought was an interesting thing, because I do know of examples. In fact, the fantastic movie Half, there was, I think the coolest guy on that whole thing, the guy who was raised fully Japanese, but his mother was Ghanaian, I believe. So I guess they exist, but yeah, it is an interesting question. And from my experience, I mean, I don't meet many black women in Japan, full stop, but I thought it was a really interesting question. I mean, I guess if they're here, it's logical that there would be more couples. But yeah, it was an interesting piece I was reading by Brian McNeil, who's always writing awesome stuff for the Japan Times, and is an awesome blog and writes awesome books, as I've featured here before. So good on that, and yeah, that's an interesting, thought-provoking thing that you put up today. So thank you for that. Robert 1967 Canada, good to see you. Globby, awesome to see you. Can I install clean Android? I'm looking for a way. I'm looking for a way to for Cyanogen mod, or to put a clean version of Android on. At the moment, based on this version, I've had a go. I've been able to root the phone. Australians, no jokes, please. But I haven't been able to actually change the OS on it yet. And there is a thing as well. Ultimately, this has tethering. It has a lot of nice features in it, which, so long as those are working and I can use my iPhone, tethered to this when I'm overseas, I don't know that I need to actually risk disabling features of the phone by going and putting in stock Android. But I would like to put on stock Android, because it's very frustrating having an Android phone with the inability to install the Google Play Store or Google Apps. Anyway, so coming back, and by the way, I'll just make one comment. Stardust like you, if you saw the 2.5 Oyajis, by the way, the reason we didn't have 2.5 Oyajis last night is Victor is currently in the US and he's there for a couple of weeks, so there's going to be a bit of a break from that. But if you saw the show with Atomic Boy X on being gay in Japan, you would have heard that the cyanogen, thank you for that pronunciation, you would have heard him give a complete assurance based on extensive research that the stereotype that Japanese men might not be able to satisfy women who are not Japanese is completely false, apparently. It's based on his research, and I'm not going to dispute it. Victor was very, very, very direct with the questioning. Too direct for me. But he got a very direct answer that, no, that's not true. They can be huge, so there you go. Anyway, back into the thing. What's the best time to go to Japan? And this is very true. It's not now. Between now and September, don't come to Japan, because it sucks. It's just too hot. But again, for Osaka and Tokyo, the best times are March to mid-May. Or from, which year for the cherry blossom? Mid-May, you're starting to get into the rainy season period. So yeah, you're probably mid to early May, definitely. And what I would say, October to mid to late November, even right into December actually. It gets cold, but it's sunny most of the time, at least on the east coast of Japan. And you get great word. You get great weather, great temperatures then. I got distracted by Mr. Kordychev talking about indeed cyanogen or cyanogen. I don't know the correct pronunciation, but I'm very glad to see people making the making the correct helping with the correct pronunciation there. Kiwi metal band and Dread Response gig was too meke. Hey, so I don't know what you're talking about, Kiwi metal band and Dread Response, but sounds cool. Yeah, and by the way, Sinanju Full Atomic Boy X assures us he's done extensive research on the subject of male Japanese anatomy, and I'm going to take him at his word. I believe the guy. So, question from Amble, does snowy Hokkaido even get hot in the summer? Well, I'll tell you what, last week they actually had 37 degrees in some places up there, so yes, it gets fully hot up there. I went to Lake Akana in midsummer where it was like 35 in Tokyo, and it was like a very, very pleasant 12 degrees at night and 25 degrees during the day, a bit like New Zealand actually. Hokkaido in summer is generally like New Zealand or maybe like UK. But it is susceptible to getting the crazy heat waves. You know, when that weather comes up, it can just go all the way up to Hokkaido. So yeah, BW Productions asking, how good is the aircon in houses? The aircon is awesome, but as Phoenix mentions, there's no central air conditioning, and the insulation tends to be pretty terrible. So the aircon is super powerful, and it works within a few minutes of coming on. But hey, Yokohama, thanks for the like. But yeah, the aircon is super powerful, and it will heat up a room or cool down a room pretty quickly, but it does it through brute force pretty much. A lot of expensive power bills and all that sort of stuff. Houses are not well built here. I don't know why they don't use insulation more, but they don't. So anyway, here is yes indeed the thumbnail for tonight, Tokyo Tonight by Fox Morris. This was awesome, and thank you for that. And by the way, of course, while I am getting regulars from Fox Morris and they're awesome, I do love the photoshops and the contributions that people make, so please keep those coming in. But this was definitely the choice for this week, and the only one that I got this week. So yeah, this one is in Japanese, but this is just talking about, so you might recall a few weeks ago we were talking about the survey being taken by the Ministry of Tourism on whether they ban foreigners with tattoos from going into onsen and why. So this news outlet did a survey of people, and you know what, the actual original Molly Boyne from Twitter summed it up really well in English, actually, the results. But basically they did a survey on what Japanese people think about foreigners. You know, foreigners are not going to be yakuza, so surely it's okay for them with tattoos to come into onsen. Well, the results were people, here we go, so the key are these ones from here. So 59% believe that I think there's a general underlying principle here. The general conclusion was Japanese don't think that foreigners should be differentiated from the local rules, which I think is what you get in any country. So the results here were that there's a feeling that people with tattoos should be banned, whether they're Japanese or foreign. No differentiation. 60% of people responded that they believe that they should be banned even if they're foreign. You know, no differentiation. 18.7% of people said that people should be allowed into onsen even if they have tattoos. And 17% of people felt that it's okay to let foreigners in with tattoos. With 4.4% responding that they don't know. So basically only 17% of people believe that foreigners should be favorably discriminated differentiated from Japanese in this situation. Hey Andrea, is that Moboy? That's fine, I'm going to turn around. It is Andrea Moboy, good to see you, and well, thank you for joining the chat, good to have you along. So it's interesting, the survey. So, you know, even though it is kind of unfair in some ways and unreasonable to foreigners who, well, although let's be clear as well, foreigners are sometimes mob, and frankly, I've seen foreigners with the Yakuza style tats as well. Bear in mind, you're in a country where tattoos are culturally used as weapons of intimidation, and you know, it's like walking around swinging at somebody, showing a tattoo in public in Japan. You know, if you walk up and, you know, you swing at someone, that's intimidating. Now you could say, I didn't intend to hit him, you know, he shouldn't have been afraid of me. But people intuitively are trained in this country to react to seeing a tattoo like they'd react to seeing someone pulling a weapon on them. And that makes them uncomfortable. You know, the result is maybe it's unfair towards the tattoo bearer, particularly, you know, if they're coming from a place where they don't know that that's the result. But that is just how it is in Japan anyway. And this still happens. There are people who still, foreigners will be complained about a lot of the time. Although, you can see there's a small group. There's 19% of people think tattoos shouldn't be banned, and there's a 17% who think that even if it's banned for Japanese, let it go with foreigners. But as you can see, 60% of people think, they got to follow the rules like the rest of us, which is, it's actually remarkable that that's the only amount. Hey, Gaijin Pod. Wow, Gaijin Pod is giving me a shout out for the live show, so awesome. I think that's understandable, and honestly I think in most countries, if you ask them should there be a different rule for tourists, going easy on tourists and that harsher on locals, I don't think anywhere in Australia or New Zealand would would allow that differentiation. Hey, Moko is tuneke, says Wildfire777. And one of the cases that came up was a Maori lady who had a moko, who had a tattoo on her chin, traditional Maori one. She went to a onsen Hokkaido with a group of international indigenous rights activists for a conference, and she was turned away from the onsen. And she said this is a symbol of, honor in Japanese, in Maori culture. How could she be turned away for it in Japan? But at the same time, Maori are you have to follow Maori protocol if you go into a Maori marae or Maori land, and she's in Japanese land. And you can't, just like I wouldn't expect to enforce different and incompatible white culture on Maori land. This is what happens in Japan. But indeed, they look cool, and the culture is changing. And I would say this is probably still a lot looser than a long time ago. But that's it. 59.9% of Japanese think both Japanese and foreigners should be banned if they have tattoos. 18.7% think both are okay. 17% think ban Japanese but let foreigners go, and 4.4% don't know. So there you go. What else has been going on this week? I read this and I laughed. It's interesting on BioMcNeil, you've got a birthmark shaped like a skull. That's pretty cool. I guess so long as it doesn't look like a Hell's Angel tattoo, you're probably okay. But I guess that's possible. Would Mikhail Gorbachev, God, I'm showing my age by even saying that name, would he have been allowed into an onsen? Now, they probably would have stopped him in Hokkaido because he's Russian. They have a lot of trouble up there with drunken Russian sailors and so on. Apparently a lot of these discriminatory policies against foreigners going into onsen in Hokkaido were because of Russian. So I guess Mikhail Gorbachev, if it wasn't for the birthmark, it would be for his nationality, which would be kind of silly, wouldn't it? Anyway, so check this out. Apparently Tokyo Bay, which has gone from being one of the most polluted waterways in the world from the 60s and 70s, it's been slowly, the water quality has been improving. There's been less factories pumping crap in, there's been less sewage going in. Tokyo Bay has been slowly getting good enough that apparently you can, they've actually lifted swimming restrictions. I think head dunking should still be banned under all circumstances, but there's been a ban on putting your head under the water because of the water pollution in Tokyo Bay. Indeed, Tokyo Bay was long considered a cesspool. They're actually lifting it, so you can actually go and take your kids to go swim in some certain beaches in Tokyo Bay, including Odaiba at the moment. I wouldn't do it. Drive an extra hour. You can go to Chiba. There's perfectly clean water on the Pacific Ocean coast. You can go down to Shonan where there's like garbage in the water, but the water's still clean, relatively. You go down to Shimoda, you've got some of the most beautiful, clearest water, actually. I've seen, even in Australia and New Zealand, you've got down there. Tokyo Bay, you do not need to swim in Tokyo Bay. I've got an Australian friend who took on a dare, some sort of batsu game, some sort of game where lost, and as a dare, went and jumped into Tokyo Bay and swam a certain distance and swam back. And she said that when she came out, she was covered in a grey film that didn't wash off easily, and then was really, really sick for like more than a week. I would not put my head under Tokyo, in the water in Tokyo Bay, no matter how nice it looks. I would give it at least another 20 years, and frankly, there's plenty of other beaches you can go to. So yeah. Do not put your head under, even though they say you can kind of temporarily, the fact that it's a temporary ban on putting your head in the water, I would not put my head straight in the water. Okay, so I went and read the other day. On my long commute in, I actually picked it up and I kind of live tweeted my reading of Texan in Tokyo's book. I loved it. It's her third book, of course. I've got the other 2 books over there, out of reach at the moment, but I've read both of them. This is the third one. It's very much like the first 2. It's the same formula of, I would say, a couple of times I laughed out loud, but generally charming and entertaining comics, followed by insightful blogs, put together very, very well. And the highlights I actually photographed as I was doing. So, you know, this is for the purposes of review, so fair use. And anyway, I'm sure that Grace is cool with this, Texan in Tokyo. So here it is. It's my ongoing review of the points that kind of stuck out as I was going through. First thing is the laundry detergent one. She actually has an episode with mixing up laundry detergent and fabric softener. I did that for my first 7 years in Japan. So yes, I know all about that. Hey, Vic Morrow's Ghost, good to see you. And the Yarra River in Melbourne. Yeah, the cleanest thing, the Yarra, the dead bodies. Yeah, well, I used to live in Point Lonsdale and in Sorrento and Portsea in Port Phillip Bay, and the water is lovely down there. But no, I would not swim in the Yarra River. So anyway, that was just a little insightful comic. Another insightful comic here. Oh yeah, I get this all the time. So it's like people are like really impressed. Oh, you're so good at Japanese. It's like, wow, you must have studied really hard. You must be a genius. Oh, wait a minute. Is your spouse Japanese? Yeah. Oh, that's why. So it's like at the moment that they find out that you have a Japanese spouse, it's like all your hard work and dedication to learning the language is immediately completely discounted. It's something that she gets that I guess I get as well, which I found kind of funny. That's like, oh yeah, that's true. Very nice blog on language learning, and how she mentions how she sucked as a student, which I sucked as well, and how frustrating that was. But yeah, and you know, on language learning, she's a smart cookie, Grace. I really like the way that she writes, and I like her insight. A couple of episodes on umbrellas getting stolen, which, as you know, is a pet peeve of mine as well. So a couple of episodes that she will not stay away from their umbrella stand because they get stolen. So your sympathy there. Heated toilet seats and the magic of them, and yes indeed, it's one of those things that once you have them you can't go back. Andrea Boboy, keep talking. Yes please. No. Tell my boss, because they won't believe you. Things that they miss about that when they're in Japan. I got this a lot. The thing about eye contact, small talk, hugging. This is definitely more of a Tokyo thing. Outside of Tokyo, there is more small talk and more talking with strangers and more eye contact and stuff like that. But certainly in Tokyo, there's too many people to interact with, so everyone just kind of shuts down. And yeah, she misses small talk a lot. And coming from Australia more than New Zealand. New Zealanders are kind of quiet, but Aussies are always talking to each other, and I miss that. I like that part of it. She's a hugger, and she enjoys hugging, and this awkwardness that you have with Japanese, where in normal social circumstances that you'd expect a hug. I remember when I was working in the OK gift shop in New Zealand, saying goodbye to a Japanese going back to Japan, and yeah, as you would when you see someone off, you give them a hug. And I remember she kind of stuck up the hand like this, shake, which really kind of messed me up. And then I got so used to not hugging that the other way around, when I was overseas and I was hanging out with, I remember foreigners, and I couldn't do the huggy bear thing, and that was that messed me up as well a little bit. So yeah, I find it conflicting and awkward as well with that. So I definitely relate to that. That was a good one. What else we got? Talks about, as a writer, the the pressure to do crazy Japan. Amble's asking, good question here. Are gaijins encouraged by natives to help them with the Japanese? Yes and no. Generally, Japanese don't like to correct foreigners, although at the same time, they've got a very low tolerance for bad Japanese, in terms of they just can't figure it out because they're not used to hearing broken Japanese. Like, we hear broken English all the time, but Japanese don't hear broken Japanese. So, hey, Zeptov, good to see you. Hello, my Armenian friend. So yeah, I don't know, if you're with someone in a relationship, they'll put pressure on you to improve your Japanese. But otherwise, Japanese will let it go a lot of the time. And I've had a lot of very frustrating experiences where I found out years later that I hadn't been corrected on something where I would have wanted to be corrected. But anyway, Jace talks about the Joyce not Joyce, it's Grace. I said Jace, didn't I? Grace talks about the pressure to do stuff, these and there's an increasing formula, these 5 crazy things that will make you totally nuts about Japan. This kind of BuzzFeed formula, which is becoming so formulaic in writing. It's a very effective formula, no question, and it makes me click, it makes me look at it. But the pressure to write stuff that is clickable, and it's not just the BBC is doing it, and I get frustrated when I see it, but it's effective. So she talks about the pressure to write crazy Japan and clickbait type stuff, and keep fighting the good fight, Grace. What else we got here? We got clothing that fits. When Grace wrote this original blog, when Texan in Tokyo wrote the original blog on this one about crumbling in a heap of despair in the Levi's store, it's actually a very moving blog, and it made me think, of course I have a problem just getting the right size. But it's actually, when you add to that being a woman and the different body shapes and everything. I mean, Texan in Tokyo, you've seen her in a video. She is by no means a fuller figured person at all. In fact, I would put her definitely on the skinny end of the spectrum, but different body shapes, and it's challenging. And she did a really good, and it's funny, I never thought about it before. It's for me, I'm always frustrated at short arms and stuff like that, and having to buy everything when I go abroad. But yeah. So B-Boy trip in Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. I don't know where that comes from, but the Caucasus, Transcaucasia. Why not? I actually studied, I mentioned this before actually with Zip Dove, that when I studied international political relations in New Zealand University, my lecturer Ruben Azizian was an Armenian former Soviet ambassador to New Zealand. So we spent a lot of time focusing on that part of the world. Now, it's fascinating to me. I've got, ancient heritage from that end of Europe as well. So, I found it very interesting anyway. That's why I find Armenian people very memorable. I've never met an Armenian I didn't like, seriously, except maybe the Cardassians, but I've never met them. And they don't really count, surely. So anyway, coming back. Long live the Caucasus. Yeah, well, I'm glad you're including Azerbaijan in that as well, because, you guys need to get along. But, oh, yes, and they left out Turkey. My teacher was always talking about how it always sucked that the symbol of Armenia happens to be over the border in Turkey as well. But I won't get into that. Anyway, I love all that stuff. One thing at the end of it as well, you notice that the if you say Confessions of a Texan in Tokyo, it comes out as coated. Texan in Tokyo, she found it very amusing to discover that the acronym of her name is TIT. Hey, I love Texan in Tokyo's. So we're crying. Good to see a bit on the short side. Yeah, a bit on the short side, but fat. The weight loss goal is to be able to buy off the rack in Japan. Maybe a tad unrealistic. Yeah, well, but there again, maybe I'm biased, but if you go to the tall and fat stores, they tend to be more fat than tall. I tend not to find stuff that I can wear from those shops, but they tend to go wider easily. So I don't know. I think you've still got more of a chance. But that said, sizes are diversifying, and there are bigger. You know, ancient people. But yes, the clothing thing is just a pain, isn't it? It's getting better. 20 years ago, you couldn't buy anything outside of a certain range, and I knew a lot of Japanese people who'd buy from my mail catalog from America or go abroad just for buying clothes that they themselves couldn't buy in Japan. It's definitely gotten better than that, and places like Uniqlo have done a lot to improve that. Hey, Ricardo the Ferry, you've been mistaken for Armenian, but you're half Brazilian. I didn't realize that you were half Brazilian. I knew there was a Latin American thing there. Hey, I love Brazil. But okay, that's cool. Anyway, your cool stock goes up by being half Brazilian. So what else we got here? I love this one. So apparently, late at night working for a friend. Hey baby, you waiting for someone? Oh my God, it's a foreigner. Well, this is certainly awkward. That whole thing about yeah, I thought you were a foreigner. So yeah, that's kind of awkward. I like that one. I didn't know this. Apparently alcoholic cans in Japan have Braille on the top. So if you're not sure if a can has something you're drinking is like a pop thing, or if it has alcohol in it or not, you can check. If it's got Braille on top, it's got alcohol. I did not know that. I learned that from this. So thank you, Texan in Tokyo, for teaching me that. and some book reviews and stuff. This is available on Amazon. It's available on Kindle, I think, still for free. But support the girl, buy it. She put a lot of work into this, and it's good. I mean, I'm just taking you through a tour of some of the highlights for me. But hey, muito obrigado. But yeah, they've got the hey, como muito legal. So yeah, anyway, it's available for free if you want to read it for free and check it out on Kindle. It's also available for free if you just follow Grace's Texan and Tokyo's Twitter feed, because she posts all the comics and the blogs and so on regularly as well, which I do and I retweet them. But there's something different about a book, right? It's just nice. You can mark pages, it smells nice, it's beautifully put together, and you're supporting her materially for working pretty hard on these things. So I give it my highest recommendation. This is absolutely, if you've got any sort of even remote interest in Japan, you've got a double win from this. This is an awesome book that I can vouch is relevant, insightful stuff about Japan, great insightful blogs as well as day-to-day stuff. So you get that, and you get to support someone who deserves it, frankly. So go out and get it. In fact, I will put you can Google it anyway, Confessions of a Texan in Tokyo, but I will put the link in the video information after this. I should have put it in before. But if you're not sure about buying it, go and read it first on Kindle and then buy it. But buy it. I like to do this. I think this is a writer worth supporting. So yeah, good job, Texan in Tokyo. Again, as always, I'm looking forward to the book number 4, and looking forward to the Japanese book that your husband is helping you put together, which I'm going to buy and, I don't know, give it to my wife or something. Hey, Joseph Finks, good to see you, and I'm glad that you could catch me before work, so there you go. Indeed, always doing that. So this week, oh man, we did it. It's like 15 minutes to go, and now we are just getting into the, what was that buzzing? Oh, I've got my iPhone, I've got my Android phone in developer mode, and it's making strange noises as a result. So the big news this week. The big news, man, there are two things that happened this week. First of all, there's a security bill. A B-boy tripping asking, did I find an activity to start up in exchange for kickboxing? And no, I haven't yet, and I desperately need it right now, because I need it for the stress management at work. I found another kickboxing gym, but I've got to figure out how to go there. I should try what you do, actually, except I'm so unco and inflexible. This is where the kickboxing thing helped. I need to do something physical. But anyway, so the two stories this week. First of all, the LDP, which has a super majority based on a couple of elections now, they've built up this huge majority in the lower house and the upper house of parliament. And Andrea, my boy, behave. So they've got the super majority. They can change the constitution if they like with the majority that they have. That's how big the majority they have is. And so they finally did what they've been talking about doing for a long time. They started passing these security bills, which Japan is technically under its constitution, which was imposed on Japan in 1953 by the occupation forces, although the story is that it was adopted by the Japanese parliament spontaneously by themselves. But of course it was written by a bunch of kids, by a bunch of university students on a 1-week deadline for General MacArthur. And it was a bunch of Japan will not do this, Japan will not do this, Japan will not do this, including the famous Article 9. Japan will not use force as an instrument of foreign policy anymore, and it renounces the right forever to wage war or to have air, sea or land forces. Pretty unequivocal pacifist clause, which has been kind of reinterpreted and rejigged over the years, that Japan does have its self-defense forces. There's an interpretation that you can only use that you can have forces provided it's for self-defense, not for anything external. And that's been the interpretation that's held, that allows Japan to kind of have a military provided it's used only defensively. But it does lead to the situation where well, technically the way that the Constitution was written by America, to be clear about this as well, this was by America. If those American forces in Japan were attacked, let's say by Russia or by North Korea, Japan is actually prevented from attacking North Korea in order to defend those Americans who are in Japan, to defend Japan. Which is a bit strange if you think about it. I mean, like I say, it's not really Japan's fault, it's the Americans' crappy constitution. As wonderful as a pacifist constitution is, and I think it is wonderful, at the same time, it undermines Japan's ability to defend the people who wrote it. And the Americans very quickly backtracked, of course. They wanted Japan to fight in the Korean War and in the Vietnam War, and the Constitution long proved to be a get out of jail free card. But anyway, so Abe's done this amendment, which basically kind of forces a reinterpretation of the Constitution, which says that there's a collective defense law, which is that if there are forces which are engaged in the defense or important allies of Japan, Japan can come and use force, its self-defense forces can use force to come to the defense of those allies, which is primarily America, but they've also specified by name Australia as well. Japan's got a massive defense deal. They're providing some submarines to Australia at the moment. So they see Australia as being important allies. And if that seems strange based on World War II history, don't forget, Japan was an ally in World War I. They were on the Allied side fighting against the Germans, and they actually, the Japanese Navy, defended Australian, New Zealand, and English shipping in the Pacific and Indian Ocean from German attacks, which happened during World War I. So, Japan, from most of its history, has been an ally of Australia. Australians wouldn't seem to realize it. So there's this idea that they've passed this collective defense bill, which basically expands the ability to use force for the defense of its allies, which seems perfectly natural and reasonable. The only thing is that it's basically giving a certain discretion to allow a judgment around what those circumstances are, which people are afraid are. Well, if they're an ally and they've got to fight to help America, won't that just mean that Japan will have to go to Afghanistan next time, or that they'll end up in Iraq, or they'll end up getting dragged into all of America's wars? And isn't this just a way that makes it easier to get into wars, which, Japan has been out of wars for 50 years by just being completely puritanical about its interpretation of this imposed constitution. And so there's been a lot of protests. There have been huge protests, and it's actually and this bill is like 68% disapproved of by the public on some polls or something like that. And immediately after, this bill got rammed through the Senate, and it's going through the lower house, I think, still at the moment, but it's going to be passed. The opposition, kicked up a huge fuss, and for the first time ever, the Abe cabinet became less popular, more disapproval. The disapproval rating for the first time exceeded its approval rating. So those lines have always been just because the Democrats were so terrible, nobody wants to go back to them. So the LDP support has been strong all this time, but now it's actually gone and dropped into disapproval over this one bill. And indeed, this prompted this article by Jake Edelstein, that are these the last days, and a couple of Yakuza references and everything else. This got forwarded a lot, and kind of pointed out how Jake's got a very, very anti-Abe disposition to begin with, which I'm not quite as extreme as he is, but he kind of makes some point summarizing all of the ways in which the government scene is becoming a bit more extreme, but more detached from the mainstream of Japan. But that said, Abe is also a survivor, and he managed to flip the very next day. He went and announced there were two things that have been dragging down the government. One is the security bill, which has been seen also when some academics came out and publicly said that they were actually lobbying on behalf of the government, and they came out and said, we think that the government's bill on security actually violates the Constitution. All of a sudden, everybody, that was kind of a green light for the public to say, wait a minute, they're going too far. So at the same time, that combined with the fact that the Olympic Stadium, which we have a perfectly good 80,000 person stadium nearby, which they could have used, which they said they were going to make an eco-friendly Olympics and everything like that. They also said that they wouldn't allow the Olympics to interfere with the recovery and rebuilding of the disaster area in the north, which it has, because all of the building materials and building companies have been forced to come down to Tokyo and take the much higher value work which you get around the Olympics. They tore down this old stadium, and then the plan for the new stadium, which was supposed to be budgeted based on a sharing of national and Tokyo taxpayers, and I'm both, so I've got to pay double on it, is $1.3 billion. It turns out to be $2.5 billion. And the cost overruns, which sounds a lot like just, ratcheting up by the construction companies, doing favors for friends and so on. The cost overruns on the Olympic Stadium and the Olympics being seen as out of control, and the fact that they don't think they would have, and the fact that in spite of that $2.5 billion cost, they also said it wouldn't be ready according to the design by 2020. So just complete disaster left and right. By the way, Lu Dui An, you're from Vietnam, as I recall. If that's the case, you might know that we've already seen Japanese military overseas in Cambodia. They help with peacekeeping in Cambodia. The only thing is that when they participate in Cambodia and in Rwanda, as they've been doing in some parts of the world, they are not actually allowed to engage. They're not allowed to, even if they're shot at, they're not allowed to shoot back. They're only for pure self-defense purposes. So Japanese military's already gone abroad, by the way. But this will allow them to fight to defend their friends abroad, which, you know, is something different. Coming back to the stadium thing, so anyway, the fact this whole thing was going out of control, this was another thing between that and the security bill. This was really, really weighing badly on the Abe administration, and they apparently went and ran some simulations. This actually came out in the press, and they said that, you know, if they didn't do anything about the Olympic thing, the Olympic mess combined with the security bill would really cause a lot of damage to the government. So he came out the next day and he said, we're taking it back, we're wiping the slate clean, and we're going to start from scratch again on planning the new Olympic stadium, which was hugely reactively popular. So why am I showing this video? That guy in the picture there, that is Tadao Ando, who is Japan's most renowned architect, and Japan actually has some really excellent architects, and he was the head of the committee which chose the design, the Zaha design, the Iraqi architect who designed the stadium. He's the head of the committee that designed it, and he's basically giving a press conference here saying, we weren't looking closely at the cost, we were just commissioned to choose the design, and, you know, nobody looked that deeply into it at the time, and I really wish the construction companies hadn't run up the costs on it so much, and it wasn't my fault. But, you know, his name was getting dragged through the mud. But not just his name, there was also, I wonder if I've got a picture of him here, this guy, ex-Prime Minister Mori, the worst Prime Minister, ex-LDP Prime Minister. He actually became Prime Minister by default. He was the Cabinet Secretary when Prime Minister Obuchi died. He was Prime Minister for 3 months and was seen as probably the worst Prime Minister in Japanese history. just not competent. But he went and retired and became head of the Japan Rugby Association and the Olympic Committee. And he made a comment here when the government said that they were going to take everything back again. He's like, what? The government's just being so cheap. It's only 2.5 billion. It's petty change. He actually said that. So right now the public's running for who to crucify, the guy who chose the stadium design, Ando, or this guy. Abe, of course, blamed the Democrats because he said that the design was chosen on the Democrats' watch. But this guy is just blabbing his mouth and bringing all the negative attention back towards the LDP. So the funny thing is that, you know, although the security bill got rammed through the lower house of parliament and there was huge outrage and this took up all the news the night that it happened, and there's a thing from Japan Crush which is summarizing the mostly young right-wing reactions to the bill getting passed through the house and the way that the protests were happening. At the same time, here it is, Japan scraps at 2.1 billion US, so 2.5 trillion Japanese yen. Stadium plan, here it was, and when he did this, the reaction of the internet people, where is it, boom, was, GJ, nice, nice-chan, Abe-chan, nice. Good job, GJ, good job, Abe-chan, good job. Everyone comes out. Well, again, it's a pretty right-wing crowd, of course. But the next day when he announced this, there was not a single story on the news about the security bills, and there was nothing but very positive press for Abe on basically blaming the Democrats and destroying. Oh, by the way, there's a stadium at the moment. They knocked it down. Why did they even have to knock it down? Seriously. So, yeah, it's amazing. He wiped it completely free from the news, and all that came on was the Olympic stuff and good press for Abe. So, you know, amazingly good job. A couple more stories and I'll do a quick outro. I'll keep it. Man, I thought I'd be short tonight, but I guess it didn't happen. Speaking of short, there is Dark Helmet. Apparently the Tesla Model S has now got an extra upgrade that they've found a way to get 762 horsepower out of the engine. The great thing about electric engines is of course just that the torque is intense. So even if the top speed isn't so great, I mean, it's like a radio control car. You press on and just boom, it just goes straight to top speed. So now they've found a way to get this very ordinary looking Tesla S to what is it, 0 to 60, which is 0 to 100 k's an hour in 2.8 seconds. 2.8 seconds. that's faster than a racing motorcycle getting to 60. So the thing is, I know the Top Gear guys, and a lot of people rip on electric cars, but holy hell, I mean, you're never going to drive a car at 380 kilometers per hour, right? You're never going to get it to the top speed. You are going to get it to 100, and the ability to do that in 2.8 seconds, I would buy that car. I would buy a car that would do that. That is awesome. So I put that on there just because I thought that was like so unspeakably awesome. I had to put it there. Sign of the times, the consumer price index, which they use, the items that they list, the 588 items that they list for measuring people, has been apparently 30 of those items have been changed, and in those items they have taken out kiddies meals from menus, which they used to track as an item of consumer inflation, and they've replaced them with hearing aids. Sign of the times, there's less kids and there's more old people. It's kind of depressing, but that is a sign of the times. Oh, and this was good. This is from Rocket News. You should totally go and check this. This is a very, very dark alphabet chart. Yeah, hiragana alphabet chart. And they've actually done this with translations. And can I zoom in on this? So, Sakai, the morning walk of shame, coming back from a late night. I mean, basically, these are all sort of things which, this was apparently put up in a psychiatric clinic. So these are the types of things that can cause people psychiatric issues, I guess. Ichiya Kagiri, one night stand. I don't even know what these are, but enzai, or the things that can lead to people causing psychiatric issues. If you want to study, this is very useful, although very bad Japanese. I've got the link there in my magazine, of course, in the Flipboard Magazine. Go and check that out. That was interesting. And as I was just saying, the plunging cabinet support forced a review of the Olympic Stadium, according to analysts, and it was very effective. I mean, it was amazing. There was not a single story about the security bill the day that they did this. This is hilarious. I saw Hiroko Tabuchi. I don't know if she made this, but I saw her retweeting this. The omotenashi, the crystal, what's her name? Crystal something or other, but yes. Yari Naoshi, which is the starting over again, doing it over for the Olympic Stadium. That was kind of funny. Sign of the times, Japanese criminals are more likely to be senior citizens than teenagers. This is, again, it's vice, so of course it's exaggerated, but there are documented cases of old people who have gone and committed property crimes simply because they wanted 3 square meals and a roof over their head, which they had in prison, which they didn't have so certainly outside. So yeah, in GiftSnop, indeed, rainy season is now over in Tokyo. There's a thing here as well. Apparently LDP has cancelled all public campaigning for the time being because they're worried about hecklers or about the security bill. So they are afraid of the public backlash from all of this. There's 2 stories here. One 37%. That's the approval rating has plummeted to 37%, which it was about 50 until recently. The bottom story is talking about you can now swim in Tokyo Bay if you dare. I wouldn't recommend it. The smallest micro four thirds camera. Well, I've got one of the smallest micro four thirds cameras right now, but look at that. That is just like the lens and nothing else. I think that's just kind of cool, and it shoots 4K video, which I guess all of them will do from now on. Final thing I just want to shout out. They've got a link from here. Dan Smith, who was apparently the producer of J Club TV, which is the show that Gigi was appearing in, and also Marika Lockridge was involved in the shooting of. So again, that's going to be coming out in September. It's not clear whether that's going to be coming out on any particular network, although apparently C. Brian Jones, Dan Smith is apparently a Fox executive producer, although it's not clear if they're going to carry it apparently. But anyway, he was on the Metropolis podcast, which they've just started recently, and it looks like it's a good podcast to add to the many other very good podcasts. Like, of course, there's the Gaijin podcast, which I think is still the #1 podcast about Tokyo and Japan news and stuff. There's the Just Japan podcast of Busan Kevin, which is also very good every week. So but anyway, some updates on what's happening with the show that Gigi's in. So I'm already over 1 hour, which wasn't my intent, but I do have a track. I call it Round 2. It is a dubsteppy type of a track, and it's my son coughing. I hope he's okay. You want me to play you an outro? I can do that. So let me go and switch over cameras. And how do I do this? I'm going to put Now, how did I do this? How did I do this? I can do this. I can do this. I know I've got the save from last week. Boom. There we go. And red, pink for the input. Okay. So, have a good night, everybody. Oh, you see my feet. Didn't mean for that. That wasn't supposed to happen. Oh. Anyway. Have a good night, everyone. And, oh, Let me cover this over. Boom. And peace. Have a good night.